Welcome to our webinar on achieving water security in Asia, modern lessons from ancient civilizations. Join us on July 10, 2025 from 2 to 4:30 JST via Zoom. We look forward to exploring innovative solutions inspired by historical practices. Water security remains a critical challenge in Asia, where rapid urbanization, population growth, and climate risk accelerate water scarcity, pollution, and inequitable access. While modern technologies offer solutions, many fail to integrate sustainable, community-driven approaches that have proven effective for centuries. Ancient civilizations in Asia developed resilient water management systems that harmonized with local ecosystems, governance structures, and cultural practice principles that remain relevant today. This event may be recorded or photographed. By attending, you agree to the use of your image and comments in media for the Institute's purposes without compensation. Please adhere to our house rules. Be punctual, use the Q&A box for inquiries and the chat box for sharing thoughts. Your cooperation ensures a successful webinar. If you lose internet connection, join via mobile phone using the provided numbers. Enter the meeting and participant IDs as instructed to stay connected. The Asian Development Bank Institute is proud to host this webinar, focusing on sustainable water security solutions inspired by ancient practices.
Good afternoon from Japan. On behalf of Asian Development Bank Institute, we are delighted to welcome you to our webinar, Achieving Water Security in Asia, Modern Lessons from Ancient Civilizations. We are honored to have such a diverse audience joining us from India, Indonesia, Philippines, Bangladesh, and many more. Before we proceed, please note that this webinar will be recorded, photographed, or live streamed. By continuing to participate, you are consenting to the use of your image, voice, or contributions in ADBI publications or other media for external communications. To ensure smooth and engaging sessions, please ensure punctual attendance. Use Q&A box to ask questions to our speakers and panelists, and feel free to use the chat box to share your reactions or comments with fellow speakers, panelists, and participants, but please keep it respectful and relevant to the discussion. Before we begin our first session, we'd like to take a quick group photo with our speakers and panelists. So speakers and panelists, please make sure your camera is turned on.
Okay, so everybody, 1, 2, 3, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Today's webinar will explore how ancient wisdom from Asia's historical water system can inform current strategies for sustainable water management. And we will begin today's session with opening messages from Retno Marsudi, United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy on Water. This will be followed by two main sessions. The first session will feature presentations from Dr. Sri Kumar from National Institute of Advanced Studies, India, and Dr. Aswin from Udayana University, Indonesia. And following the first session, we will have a 10-minute break. And after the break, we will have our second session, a panel discussion featuring Dr. Sitaram from ADBI as moderator, and Dr. Yongping Wei from University of Queensland, Prof. Sri Mariati from Bandung Institute of Technology, Dr. Kenichi Mitsui from University of Tsukuba, and Sri Yugal Joshi from Niti Aayog as panelists. Then we will conclude today's webinar with a keynote remarks from Yoonjin Kim from World Water Council. And to open today's discussion, we are honored to present a message from Retno Marsudi, United Nations Secretary General, Special Envoy on Water. She brings 4 decades of distinguished diplomatic experience. Prior to her current role, she was Indonesia's first foreign minister and served 2 terms as Indonesia's Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2014 to 2024. Let's now hear her welcoming remarks.
Dean, the CEO of the Asian Development Bank Institute, His Excellency Bambang Brojonegoro, honorable speakers, distinguished delegates. I thank the Asian Development Bank Institute for inviting me to take part in this webinar. Colleagues, water is life, and since the dawn of humanity, water has been fundamental to our survival, development, and progress. It flows through generation and civilization, continue to sustaining and shaping human life. With that, our shared wisdom and heritage in water extend far beyond what historical records can capture. The same applies to water-related challenges. From ancient times to modern societies, humankind has consistently faced with water-related challenges, demanding us to respond, adapt, innovate, and strengthen our relationship with water. Our ability to respond to these challenges will determine the survival and progress of humankind. However, today, water challenges have reached an unprecedented scale. Globally, 2.2 billion people lack of access to safe drinking water. 3.5 billion lacks of access to safely managed sanitation. In the past 2 decades, the number of recorded floods rose by 134%. Water has become too little, too much, or too dirty. To make things worse, those challenges are compounded with various other challenges, making it much more difficult to overcome. Among others, population dynamics, climate change, and global financial constraints have stressed our water more. Yet, while today's water challenges are unique, it is important to also recognize that most of them have occurred in the past. And this is why it is critical to reflect and learn from the wisdom of our forefathers in water system. Across Asia, there are plenty of ancient water systems we can learn from, many of which has been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. In Indonesia, for example, the Subak irrigation system has taught us how water must be valued and managed in communality, giving a root of democratic value in water management. In India, step wells or Baolis architecture show us how water storage and management also serve as a means of gathering to strengthen social cohesion. In China, Dujiangyan irrigation system, constructed around 256 before century, and it is still functional until today. It is recognized as the UNESCO World Heritage Site as an effective irrigation system and control flood. In Japan, Kamo Wakai Kazuzi Shrine and Kamo Myoya Shrine in Kyoto has been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site strongly linked with its ritual of water purification. Colleagues, in the regions, there are countless other examples of ancient water systems that we can learn from, that are still relevant to address water challenges we face today. At the heart of every ancient water system is the principle of cooperation and valuing water. Just like our predecessors, we also need to mainstream water as an integrated part of our lives and society, not as an afterthought. And I wish you all a fruitful and inspiring discussion. I thank you very much.
We now move to our first session of the day, Lessons from Ancient Water System, featuring 2 distinguished speakers who will share case studies from India and Indonesia. There will be a Q&A sessions after the second presentation, so we invite all participants to post questions in the Zoom Q&A box. And throughout the sessions, you are welcome to share reflections or comments in the chat box, but please keep comments respectful and relevant to the discussion. Please join me in welcoming our first speakers of the day, Dr. Sri Kumar, Associate Professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies, India. Dr. Sri Kumar is an architect and prehistoric, specializing in ancient architecture and prehistoric monuments. His work traces the evolution of design and construction practices in early Indian civilizations. Today, he will present from Dholavira to Vijayanagara, water management systems in ancient India. Dr. Sri Kumar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Nadia. At the outset, I would like to thank ADBI and the entire team involved for organizing this seminar on a very relevant theme, and also the privilege of for me to participate in it. I hope I'm audible, and I hope my slides are visible. Is it full screen? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So today I will be talking about from Dholavira to Vijayanagara, Dholavira being a Harappan city and Vijayanagara being a late medieval city. So we're going to look at water management. So idea is to look at water management systems across ancient India and then leave it to the esteemed panelists and the audience to figure out whether they hold any relevance for today's challenges that we face in water management. So my presentation is going to be largely pictorial. I've been fortunate enough to visit many of these places, and I would like to convey a sense of what they look like to you, because apart from being very ingenious methods of water conservation and distribution, they're also very beautiful places. And I mean, and like we heard just now, it was not just one dimension. It was not just water conservation that was involved. There was also society involved and bringing people together, and just means of water distribution too, as we will be seeing in a moment. So the challenge of trying to portray the water management systems across India is very formidable. As you can understand, India is a very large landmass, of climatic regimes, and the time span also is from 2500 to 3000 BCE to maybe around late 16th century AD. So the time span also is humongous. So what I'm trying to do is I'll show you a few snapshots across history of how people have been looking at water management. And these will be confined to areas which are generally arid, because I will not be looking at the places where water is plentiful. So I'll be looking at areas of India where there is a short period of monsoon, or when rains bless the land, and how the rest of the time there's scarcity and how they harness this water to serve them throughout the year. So we will start off with Dholavira. And Dholavira is a Harappan city, as I was telling you. The Harappan city is we're talking about a civilization, the first urbanization of India. So it is in the run of Kutch, Dholavira. I'll show you in a moment. So this is when the first cities happened on the Indian subcontinent. So the first settlement started as early as maybe 7000 BCE. And then slowly over time, they came together and they made a cohesive civilization, culture, you could say. And there was agricultural surplus, which permitted people to pursue crafts and specialization in crafts and all that. And the first cities of the Indian subcontinent came into being in this place. So this is a kind of distribution that we're talking about. So the place that we're going to talk about, Dholavira, is here. And you can see that it's a large landmass was covered by this once thriving civilization. The time scale we are talking about, like I was mentioning, is we are talking about maybe the first settlements and agriculture started around as early as 7000 BCE. And then, the mature Harappan, when the cities came into being around 2500 BCE to 1900 BCE, after which the decline started, and then slowly they disintegrated, the cities disintegrated, the urban structure disintegrated, and people went back to, earlier methods like farming and stuff like that. So this is where Dholavira is. This is the Indian state of Gujarat on the western coast, and this is the run of Kutch, which is today is a salt desert, but at the time of the Harappan civilization, it was a shallow arm of the sea, and we are talking about this little island which is there in the run of Kutch right now, and I'll show you a closer view of it. This is the island called a Bait there, and in this Bait. You have this is Dholavira, which was a city in those times. It was a coastal city, and in those times very important in the Harappan scheme of things as place of trade and other things. And it was supported by a variety of other smaller sites, some of which are even today unexcavated. And Dholavira's, it came into being somewhere in the early to mature Harappan transition stages. That's around 2650 BCE. And it had 3 stages during the Harappan, mature Harappan phase. And then there was a couple of short periods of desertion, as you can see here. And then it just kind of disintegrated and people abandoned the city at some point of time. So if you look at the satellite pictures of what Dholavira used to look like, you can see that it is you can see the well-planned city even in the remains that you see on the satellite image. And after excavations today, we know that this is what the city looked like. There was a fortified raised area called the castle, and there was a slightly lower area called the bailey. There was a ceremonial ground which was used for processions probably, and there was a middle town where large amounts of the population lived, and a lower town. And this is where many of the craftsmen who made beads and craft specialists that we talked about lived. So this is in a very arid area. Even today, it's a very arid area. And it was watered only by 2 seasonal rivulets called the Mansar and the Manhar Nalas. And what these people did was that they created dams on these seasonal rivulets and diverted all these waters into the large reservoirs which came all around around the town, around the city rather. So this is a visualization that somebody else has made about the 2 seasonal nallas you can see and how they were diverted into this large reservoir which surrounded the city that you can see here. Just to show you the scale of the reservoirs, this is the eastern entrance towards the citadel called the east gate of the citadel, which is as it is excavated and stabilized today. And they also depended on wells which went into the water table, which is in the area, and they had a lot of ceremonies involving bathing. For example, what you see in the inset is a ceremonial bathing area, which is watered by, you can see that from here, in just a moment when I get to the pointer. Yeah, so from this well, there was a small aqueduct which came into this bathing area, which was used ceremonially, it is believed. But then they also had the reservoirs, which I was showing you in the visualization earlier, and you can see the scale of it and the enormity of their achievement comes into mind. You can see the scale of it because you can see the people here, so you can imagine how deep this is. When you imagine that this was a Bronze Age civilization, which did not have the use of iron, for example. So the excavation of these large wells in an area where there's a lot of bedrock, and also making the stone blocks which line the sides of it must have been a really formidable task, which underlines the importance they attached to the water that they had. You can see here, this is how the thing was, and where they encountered really hard bedrock which they couldn't excavate, they left it as it is, as you can see here. They were also interlinked, as I'll be showing you. This one again shows you the size, the amount of water that it could have contained. So they were really challenged in the sense that when there is no monsoon, they had no source other than the deep wells that was for getting water for this city, which probably had at its peak a population of maybe 10,000 people. And you can see that between the different reservoirs, there is large ducts which convey water from one to the other. So it was like an overflowing system. One would fill up and then it would overflow into the next one. And then you would have this system of tanks all around the thing here. Now a huge jump in time and space also, if you could look like. This is still in Gujarat. The picture that I'm showing you is a step well called Adalaj, which is a medieval period step well in the state of Gujarat in India. Ahmedabad, you can see it. So I'll show you a few step wells. Step wells were there throughout India, in all the arid regions. Some of them are very beautiful and picturesque, like you can see here, sculpturesque, but some of them were more utilitarian. I'll show you examples of both. So this is Adalaj, which I showed in the last slide. So the idea in a step well is to excavate down until you hit the water table, and then it comes into water wells up into a well here. And then either you can draw it by pulleys directly up from the well, which would be, sometimes it's quite deep. So it would be a formidable task to pull up water from there. Or you could descend by means of these steps. You could literally descend into the depths of the earth to reach the water and to bring it up. So it had to be designed very. It's also a social space, like it was mentioned in the opening address. It's also a social space where people converge, and also it's a feat of engineering achievement, because as you go down into the retaining walls which keep the surrounding earth at bay had to be really built very strong. And also when water is heavy, so when people carry full pots of water and ascend back to the surface of the earth, the steps which lead up there, so you have to design your landings very sensibly so that people ascend a flight of steps then they can relatively rest during the flat landings which are there, and then again ascend to the rest of the regions there. So you can. This is another example of a much bigger well called Rani Ki Vav in Patan in Gujarat, the same state of Gujarat. And by making the structures look like, there were carvings, there were you could almost call it a quasi-religious structure. They bring the sacredness to the water. Unfortunately, today we do not respect it. On this bottom left image, you can see how foul the water is today. It would be a wonderful thing if we could revive these step wells in all the. It's not only for the aesthetic reasons, but also it would show the health of the aquifer systems around the towns. So this is Adalaj, and then we come to much south in the Indian subcontinent to the state of Karnataka, where I am today. There's a place called Sudi in northern Karnataka, and this is inside a step well looking up. At the time when I went in here, it was dry. So you can see that the whole thing looks like a temple which is inverted. And these are views of it. So this is where you go down into the earth, and you can see that it looked very much like a temple of those times, which was ruled by a dynasty called the Kalyani Chalukyas. And the wall surface look exactly like the temples that they have. So all the users felt that they were entering a temple, which in one way it is very true because the water systems are the sacred things of any given place. And you can see here today it's all dried up because the aquifers that nourish these wells are no longer working because of our rapid urbanization and the utter disregard we have to sustaining the health of many of these systems, unfortunately. This is another play. Every step well need not be sculpturous. Every step well need not look like a temple. This step well in a town called Lakshmeshwar, which is again in northern Karnataka, is connected to a temple. But this is where you descend down into a landing, and then it's an L-shaped step well, and then you descend down to the level of the water. And you can see here there are steps, landings, and steps like you saw here. But in this case, the entry is much narrower, and they put these stone beams across, which you can again see it in this picture, to retain the earth, which will be pressing in from all the sides there. And this is another northern Karnataka town called Lakundi. Again, you have a temple here, and surrounding it is a step well, which you can see here. It's called a Muskina Bavi. And this is a dilapidated step well in the same place. Now, Lakundi is a place where they say that there were 101 step wells. You can hardly make out maybe 15 today, and many of them are in very poor condition also. So the secret to maintaining the health of the step wells was also having. I'll show you a satellite image of this place. So you had this huge reservoir called in Lakundi, and which stored rainwater basically, which during the monsoon season it collects the water, and the water stays there all the time. And you can see that these two step wells which I showed you are circled here, they're very close to it. So the aquifers that these step wells are basically in turn nourished by this huge reservoir. So it is a planning on large scale. So you have 3 or 4 of these large water bodies in the town, which was a very thriving political center in those times. I'm talking about the 10th to 12th centuries AD. And so by having these large systems here, they nourish the step wells, which were the places which people used to draw water to, and things like that. So now we move to a different landscape again in northern Karnataka. This is where the capital of Vijayanagara, which was there in our title slide, existed. So Vijayanagara ruled a large part of southern India during the 14th to 16th centuries CE. And it encompassed a very large. This is from the Greater Vijayanagara area, the agricultural heartland that supported the city. The city was very large and thriving, one of the largest cities in the world at that point of time. So the landscape, as you can see, is very stark. There are these granite inselbergs in a plain land, and the monsoon season is you have a short and sharp monsoon, and then it's drought most of the rest of the year. So what they did was, because you have these large inselbergs, chains of inselbergs, they would look at places where there's an amphitheater kind of a thing with hillsides, and they would bridge any gaps with stone masonry. And you can see that at the mouth of it, they have put a large earthen bund here, which is reinforced with stone, masonry construction on the inner and outer sides. And then they had the sluice gates that you're looking at here. The sluice gates, which are built of large pillars of granite. And when it was, unfortunately, today the tank is breached, and you can see only a little bit of water stagnated here. In its heydays, the water level would have come up till somewhere very close to the top of this bund. And the sluice gate, which are operated from this stone pillars, will be letting out the water through a tunnel system which goes through this bund. I'll show you a section in a moment. So this is how the sluice gates today look like. You can see the chain of hills which contain the water. So you're collecting the runoff from a very large area and collecting it into this tank. And it was not just a structure. There was also a social system in place. There was a person called a Neeru Ganti who was in charge of letting out waters to different fields which are at different distances from this place. And the Neeru Ganti's decision was final in all matters of arbitration. And you can see here the closer view of it, how how the stone facing of the bund is there, and the tank as it looks today. And the thing is, where do you get the pillars? We did not have things like concrete in those days, so they would look for large stones from which these pillars could be excavated from. You can see where these two pillars have been taken from. A closer view is here. Those two, they've cut out the stones, which is a massive engineering feat actually. They are about 13 meters tall and about 60 centimeters by 60 centimeters in cross section, perfectly straight. And they have been taken down about 150 meters away and installed as the support for the sluice gates. So this is how the thing works. This is your earthen embankment faced with stone masonry. These are the towers which have the sluice gates here. Sluice gates will be here, and when you lift them, water comes out through this stone slab-like tunnel and then goes out into the channels, will distribute water. And by blocking and unblocking these channels, the Niruganti would control which field received how much water. Now let's move to, I know I'm going very quickly, but move to another place called Badami in Karnataka, which is the capital city of a early Chalukyan Empire, which existed during the 6th century CE to the 8th century CE. So Badami is again in a very dry place, and the geology there is very different. This is sandstone, unlike granite, what you saw in the previous case in Vijayanagara. And this is also the first center of stone architecture in southern India. So there were rock cut temple which existed here, the structural temple, some of which you can see here and here. But when the ruler called Pulakeshi the First established this as the capital of his center, what he did was you have a roughly C-shaped amphitheater. He created a bund across that so that all the water, the runoff from all these cliffs, would come down and accumulate in this tank at the center, which is called the Agastya Tirtha. You can see it here. Here, there's a satellite image. You can see the sandstone cliffs forming a U or a C-shaped enclosure. And by creating the bund at at the mouth of it, he created this huge water reservoir called Agastya Tirtha, which unfortunately today, again, some of the inlets into this are blocked by modern construction. So like you see this picture, always the tank is not full. So how you can see it here, this is a view from the ground. There's one part of the cliff. You can see this waterfall. It's a very beautiful waterfall. It happens like when it starts raining here, if it rains, the rains are sustained for about half an hour to 45 minutes. This twin waterfall start up. And after the rain stop, in another hour or so, the waterfall also stops here. I'll mention the waterfall because I will end on a note about the nature of these waterfalls. So you can see here that this is a picture of the cliffs, the edge of the sandstone cliffs. You can see that the water has been, the lines of wetness, you can see that they've been coming from all over the cliffs. But when you go towards the top of the waterfall, where this girl is walking here right now, you can see that this area is totally artificially cut out. Okay, so what you can see here is that you can see this entire basin has been artificially excavated, and the waterfall is actually an artificial one. So what they did here, so you can see here, this is a time taken during the end of monsoon. All these lines of wetness are converging to the lowest area here. They identified that place and cut it out in a large basin so that it will form the waterfall there. So what they do with this in effect is that they're trying to create something that is at once beautiful as well as a beautiful backdrop for the thing as well as functional. So I think that is where I will leave it in this particular case here, because what we looked at is a variety of water containment, management, and distribution systems existing for various, a variety of situations which are there for different types of settlements. The early Dholavira that we talked about had a population, I said, at the peak only about 10,000. But as we come further down in history, we're looking at larger settlements, and we're looking at things which are very, very close to modern cities. Vijayanagara look very much like a modern city, in fact, when you're talking about it. What I have missed out in this presentation are smaller water management systems. Every settlement was not as large as even Dholavira. So there were Neolithic settlements in southern India, which consisted of, maybe a couple of hundreds of people. And they had water management systems which were on much smaller scale. There were rock pools which were augmented and used in many of these places where which served the purpose for these Neolithic. When I'm talking about Neolithic settlements, I'm talking about 3000 BCE to maybe about 1500 BCE. And that's a place when a time when in southern India, agriculture started, the domestication of animals happened, and the first settlements came about. So those settlements also had smaller techniques of water management, which is something which I've left out of here due to the paucity of time. I think I will leave it here. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to take them at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Kumar, for sharing those interesting cases from India's water heritage from different Indian cities. I'm sure your insights have sparked many questions from our audience, and we'll be looking forward to answer that questions in the Q&A sessions. But next, uh, please join me in welcoming our second presentations from Dr. Aswin. Dr. Aswin is Associate Professor at Udayana University, Indonesia. He is a scholar of Balinese vernacular architecture and sustainable planning, known for integrating cultural traditions such as Trihita Karana and Subak into urban development models. Today, he will present Built Environment from Ancient Bali, the Balinese Heritage for Sustainable Water Management. Dr. Aswin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Miss Nadia. Let me share. Did you see my slide? Miss Nadia?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for Miss Nadia. Thank you for ADBI for organizing this webinar and to invite me. Also, thank you for Sri Kumar Merans, the moderator, and all of team from ADBI and all of participants who are joining this webinar. So let me introduce myself. I'm Aswin. Yeah, you can call me Aswin. Yeah, I have a long name, like in Balinese name, Ngakan Ketut Aswin Bijenra, but you can call me just Aswin. I'm from Bali, Indonesia. I'm lecturer in Udayana University and also researcher, author. Yeah. Today my presentation is titled Build Environment from Ancient Bali, the Balinese Heritage for Sustainable Water Management. This explore how Bali ancient Subak system, rooted in culture, spirituality, and local wisdom, offers powerful lesson for modern sustainable water governance. Yeah. This is based on our research in Bali, and now recently already published in international journal Halion. And it shows how this heritage remains and might be relevant to Asia water future. Let me start with introduction and the backgrounds here. Bali holds one of the most ancient and unique water management system in Asia, deeply rooted in local wisdom. Originating from the pre-Hindus era and evolving through Hindu-Buddhist influences, the Subak system represents a pinnacle of communal irrigation design and now recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage. The system is not just only technical, but this is spiritual. The core of philosophy of Trihita Karana, which is promotes harmony among humans, nature, and spirituality, man, and and shaping both the landscape and culture mindset. And the objective of my research is to explore the sustainability values embedded in Subak, and then assess the current condition, and then identify the key leverage factor for the future resilience. When you see the Subak in Bali, this is the map, illustrate the wide distribution in Subak across Bali, showing integration with
Sorry,
both.
Dr. Aswin. Sorry to
Yeah,
cut you off. I think you're sharing the wrong window. It's
I see.
still on the first light instead of the full screen.
It's okay.
Can you please share like the full screen? Yeah, it's still the same as before. So I'm afraid it will cause the same.
In Windows.
Yeah, if not, we can also share the screen, and then maybe, yeah, we can share the screen on our end. We have your presentations if
Okay,
that would
I will stop
be
it.
okay.
Okay, can you go to the, yeah, now is the math? Yeah, okay. Um, go to the next slides. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Um, this map illustrates the wide distribution of subrak across Bali, showing its integration with both culture and ecological zones. There are 2,726 subaks here, uh, units here, including 1,059 subak Sawa and 1,130 subak Abian. This is spanning 50.5% of Bali total land as rice field and 52.5% as agricultural lands. This extensive network of communal irrigation demonstrates not only agriculture efficiency but also cultural resilience, ensuring food security while preserving harmony with the nature. Next. Yeah. Uh, this slide show the multiple function of Subak in Bali. Subak is more than irrigation system. It is a multifaceted institution that support nature conservation, sustains agricultural livelihoods, organize communal cooperation, preserve religious ritual, and foster ecotourism. This synergy between culture, ecology, and economy makes Subak is a living heritage model of sustainable land and water management in Bali. Next. Yeah. Um, this side, sacredness and cultural significance of Subak. The Subak is not only a water management system, it's a secret culture legacy embedded in Balinese custom, religion, and identity. It functions as a living monument, passed down through generation and rooted in Asian beliefs like the Dewi Sri religion and the Tamiyan concept. Yeah. Its preservation reflects the community's spiritual connection and give culture a responsibility toward heritage conservation. Next. Okay, let me go to the method that we use. Yeah, this study it was employing a qualitative approach that includes field observation, interviews, and also using document analysis. This research is conducted in 4 key locations, which is Denpasar, Badung, Gianyar, and Tabanan. Yeah, where is Subak remains integral to community life. And the respondent consists of Subak managers, community members, local leaders, and government officials. And then for analytical framework, we're using MDS or multidimensional scaling is a play using modified Revit software to assess water management sustainability. And we have six key dimensions evaluated, which is ecology, economy, social culture, technology and infrastructure, legal institutional framework, and also human resources. Go next. Okay, let's me go to the key findings. The first finding is traditional water management system of Bali. Bali traditional water management reflects a deep cultural roots. During the pre-Hindu era, water sources such as mountains and rivers were referred as a sacred. Hmm. So, often marked by megalithic structure. Then in 10 and 12th centuries, sacred water like temple like Tito Empul Temple, Gua Gajah Temple emerged with the royal regulation on water right and specialist professions such as tunnel makers, water managers. Later, in Majapahit and post-period uh, Majapahit period, the Balai Kambang system integrated into ritual and water governance, yeah, and reflecting that's the Dewa Raja concept, where the king was seen as divine and responsible for equitable water distribution. Next, the funding is second ecological philosophy. Bali is ecological wisdom is guiding by the concept of Bajak Laut dan Negara Gunung philosophies. So this is symbolizing balance between sacred mountains as upstream and then the sea as downstream. This is the key of to hydrological sustainability. Yeah, the mythical figures like Naga Basuki or dragon, Naga Tatsaka, dragon Naga Tatsaka, represent water cycles and atmosphere flow. In practice, the Subak ensure the fair water allocation using tech and is is managed communally towards Awigawig. Yeah, Awigawig is the customary law is local. Yeah, Balinese. Yeah, rituals such as Magpag and Toyo reflect the public involvement in conserving water resourcing. That is the finding of ecology philosophy and also Subak as downstream water governance. So let's do the next slide. So let's go to the assessment, the sustainability assessment that we're using Matthias assessment and the research show, yeah, the social culture dimension is the strongest, which is 71.11%. Then ecological is 63.34% and economic is 56.12%. Is And this is need immediate attention. Traditional systems are strong in preserving heritage, but Bali's water resilience is strengthening the ecological and economic dimension. So um, the solution is strengthening the cross-sector system in sustainable manner. Next, and we go to the leverage factors, yeah, which is priority for improvements. And the study show that the Bali's water governance face the key leverage issues. One is economically, yeah, the farmers earns below minimum wage. The second, environmentally, land use conservation and pollution threatening sustainability. And then the social culturally, tension rise between tourism and Subak communities. In terms of institutionally, weak of governance and legal enforcement persist. And technologically, monitoring gaps hinder quality control. And then this dimension must be addressed holistically to ensure the water resilience. Next. Okay. This slide, um, we have 8 key lessons from ancient Bali uh, as the finding of our research. Yeah, the Balinese heritage for sustainable water management. Yeah, and we have the ancient Balinese wisdom offers 8 timeless lessons, and three takarana integrate nature, people, and spirituality. And then the special logic like Kajakalod and Negara Gunung aligns water flows with cosmology. And Subak institution and the local law awig guarantee or ensure community-based governance. And also we have traditional tool like tech. This is spot fairness with without modern technology. Yeah. And then we have rituals. Yeah, rituals embed to ecological ethics. Yeah. And Subak stay resilient across chains. Is the values fit modern policy, offering a hybrid model that breeds tradition and innovation. Next. So what is the implication and recommendation? So through to strengthening water sustainability in Bali, yeah, culture heritage must be revitalized. Mm. Let's say integration across tourism, agriculture, and water is crucial. And Subak organization need institutional and legal empowerment, while farmers' welfare should be supported with economic incentives. And modern technologies must be adopted for real-time monitoring. Yeah. And lastly, stronger private sector engagement via CSR uh, to enhance conservation efforts. Yeah, this is the implementation that we make it. Next. So what we can conclude that Bali's ancient water management present unique synthesis of spirituality, cultural values, and environmental adaptation. These traditional practices, rooted in harmony with the nature, provide strategic insight for sustainable water security across Asia. Uh, to ensure resilience in the face of to face the modern of challenges, I think a cross-sectoral integration is essential. Merging cultural heritage, ecological stewardship, legal frameworks, economic revitalization, and also technology innovation is a must. I think let us not just merely preserve tradition, but empower. It is because the wisdom of Bali ancient water system lies to the blueprints for sustainable and resilient future. In securing Asia water future, the past is not behind of us. It's flow through us. Yeah. And by embracing ancient wisdom as catalyst for innovation, we unlock timeless solution for tomorrow challenges. Next, thank you for your kind attention, for all organizational participants, for your time, engagement, and thoughtful reflection. Yeah, maybe this dialogue will be inspire a stronger collaboration across culture, discipline, also generation to building water secure future for Asia. I think let us move forward by looking back, honoring ancient wisdom to shape water secure and also resilient Asia for generation to come. Thank you for very much. I also am looking welcome for question.
Thank you, Dr. Aswin, for sharing this rich perspective on indigenous water system in Bali and their relevance to today's and maybe in the future's planning challenges. And after two insightful presentations from our speakers, we are now opening the Q&A sessions for our first two sessions. Please type your questions into the Zoom Q&A box and we will read them out for the speakers to respond. And if you would like to direct your question to a specific speaker, please indicate their name clearly in your question. And we will have around 10 to 13 minutes for the Q&A session. And while we're waiting for questions from the audience, maybe to start us off, based on your presentations, Dr. Srikumar and Dr. Aswin, what do you think are the key similarities between the ancient water system in Bali versus in India, and what are the differences?
Shall I go first? Yeah, I mean, I think I have shown water management system in a completely different climatic zone than what Ashwin has presented, Dr. Ashwin has presented, because there are similar water regimes in climatic regimes in India too, but I left them out because they were places of more of plenty. And when you look at, like I mentioned in the beginning, India is a vast landmass, and we have we have deserts and we have tropical rainforests and everything. So I deliberately picked places which have a short and sharp monsoon season where the annual rainfall is concentrated in a couple of months, maybe at the most, and the remainder of the year is totally dry. And so the kind of scales that they wanted to store water and put them, distribute them completely very large because they had to harness all the water for the rest of the year. But whereas I think if you look at certain places which have a similar climate to what Dr. Ashwin presented, I think you will find some similar kind of systems in there. I'm not saying exactly similar, but more similar kind of systems in there. I would like to know your views on it, Dr. Ashwin.
Can I add, Nadia?
Yeah.
Okay. If I listen from Sri Kumar, and I see some similarity between Bali in India, since that Bali is like 95% Hindus religion, which is also influenced from India. What I see that from in terms of spirituality, yeah, have similarity how to keep that the water is sacred, yeah, the belief of people, yeah, water is sacred. This is important thing. Even in Bali, we call it our religion is water religion, is it a source of life. And when we see like when looking the focus of the functionality that Subak in Bali is irrigation system. Mhm. And in India, like step well and tanks and God is more like a keeping saving water and rituality. It's similar functionality, but it's in different way how the system is going. And the second, the similarity is about the institutionals, yeah, which is both basis on community in India or in Bali, is strong of community, strong of local wisdom. So legally is based on customary law. So and that's why this also recognized by UNESCO, like Subak in Bali is become UNESCO World Heritage. So it's meant that maybe looking from the landscape and the structurally, yeah. In Bali, Subak is terracing, how to say, is rice field based on the concept of the mountain and the sea flowing. Is the wetland maybe like a step wells like in India, what the Sri Kumar so is more like for dry climates, And then I don't know in India now, but in Bali, when we're looking for the conservation, sustainable conservation, until now Subak is still active. Yeah, if one Subak in Bali is combined, it's not just only as heritage, and also already integrate with the tourism. We have ecotourism with the Subak, and we have also ecological and also economics there, and community stronger is there, and we keep our security food Bali as the source of paddy in Bali. That's thing that but maybe in India I don't know still is living monument or no is dead monuments uh, just only archaeologists or is living monument like in Bali. Okay, something like that.
Can I respond to that? Okay, I
Okay.
think I have probably shown examples of dead monuments because I've shown you in Vijayanagara context the water tank which is breached actually it doesn't work anymore, but there are plenty of Vijayanagara lakes which are still functioning. Just still like for example Daroji near Vijayanagara near Hampi what we call today is still functioning and the people depend on that Vijayanagara, what was created in the 16th century, still for their water needs. So these things can be revived easily. If that very tank that I showed you, the reason why I showed that was because it is breached, we can see the bare bones of the system, which is why I brought in that example. But if, for example, we rebuild that one, the place which was breached, it can still function today and repair the tunnels. It can still function. And the water, about the step wells that you are talking about, I think it's unfortunate. It's a very important point that you raised that it was sacred to the people. So I think the reason of building stepwells to look like temples was also to bring in the element of sacredness into things that people respected in some ways. In today's context, unfortunately, we have lost that respect for sacredness. So unfortunately, most of the stepwells that you find in many of these places, like I showed you, the water is foul. You cannot use it anymore. Many of the systems that actually keep it healthy, the aquifers that run into it, they've also been blocked because of unwise kind of planning. So many of these monuments do not work. Okay, but the beauty about the system is that it can still be revived. That system still works. So if you put in an effort, identify what are the problems happening with it, we can still revive these systems you know to uh, to function.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dr. Asin and Dr. Srikumar, for your answers. We are now have received some of the questions from the audience. Maybe I will read the first question from Krishna. I think it should be directed to Dr. Srikumar. Krishna asked about, so subwells are concentrated. Is it only concentrated in dry areas in India, like Rajasthan, Karnataka, and some parts of Gujarat, or is it all over India? How does it span across the country?
Yeah, it's largely in dry areas. It's like, for example, one of the cities that I the ancient city that I showed you, the place called Lakundi, is supposed to have had 101 step wells. Okay, but it is not necessarily. You will also find, like, for instance, if you go to southern Karnataka, the place closer to Udupi, if people know it, it's a coastal city, a coastal town. And there too, you find step wells. So it need not be necessarily confined to dry areas alone, but largely you find them occurring in dry because there it was a big necessity. Many of the other places like Udupi, you have riverine sources for this. You have ponds. You have so many other sources. The step wells are more ceremonial, connected with temples or monasteries and stuff like that. But in principle, yeah, they can work anywhere where you have access to water table.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Srikumar. So the next question is actually related to what Dr. Aswin mentioned about ecotourism in Bali. So we have a question about how is the growth of tourism in Bali affect Subak water management system, both environmentally and socially?
Yeah, it's the good question from what's the name is Mia Nguyen, yeah. I hope that's correct to call you. Yeah. The growth of tourism in Bali has significantly impact for the environment and also the social, yeah, in social on traditional subak water management system. Let me mention from the environmental impacts. The first is the water competition and scarcity of water. Because tourism, in particular like hotels, villa, and golf courses, consume large volume of water. And this is often diverting supply from the subak system. But this is impact, you see. And and this also decrease the water availability for rice fields, in particular in dry seasons. Yeah. What is the impact? The second from environmental is the land use conversion. Yeah. Agriculture lands is integrated with the subak and being rapidly convert into tourism infrastructure. Yeah, tourism needs infrastructure and the building of villa, hotel, and then the land, agricultural land is conversion. Yeah, that subak is there. Okay. So this disrupt the physical network of irrigations and canals and terraces. It's a lot of issue about this. Yeah, because of that infrastructure and then disrupt irrigation canal and system and fragmenting subak system. And of course, when you look from the ecological degradation and urban runoff, waste discharge, and also chemical pollution from the tourist facilities and impact for the water quality. And of course, and also in Subak channels, a lot of some pollution and go to the water of Subak. And what is the impact and loss of biodiversity in paddy field ecosystem and due to the reduce of land and also contaminated water coming and then biodiversity of paddy is problem. But when you asking about the social impacts here, let me check. I forgot the number, but the decline of farmer participation in Bali is decline because of that tourism. Young generation increasing seeking employment from the tourism sector rather than traditional farming. Yeah, also effect. Yeah, it's more economic. It's more profit. It's more easier to work in tourism rather than as farmer. And the result is the labor shortage and decline in Subak memberships and ritual. We have some data about how decrease the members of Subak. Okay, and and then the social cohesion. What's happened? Subak function is board of irrigation and social religious institution, and then tourism drive land sales, migration disrupt this community cohesion. Now our community is not just only homogeneous but heterogeneous. Even in one place in Subak system, there are foreigners then over the world. And of course, and conflict might arise between the farmers, conflict between the developers not just only Bali, Indonesia, and also from foreign developers. and then over cross water access and land use problem. And then in the end is the cultural commodification. How to mention in English? Culture commodification. While Subak as used as attraction. Subak as used as attraction for ecotourism, for the photo spot. And then what happened? The spiritual, the culture significance is often overlooked or misrepresented. I think it's like that. Social and economic impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asmin. Yeah, I would like to also welcome Dr. Setaram from ADBI. He's also joining this session. And he has extensive experience working on water projects. So I would also welcome you to add some notes if you have anything you want to add.
Well, I want to thank the two speakers for their excellent presentations. Sometimes we get new insights, and today I received very interesting insights. Thank you, Sri Kumar, for the very visual archaeological photographs and those. So one would wonder why we are not able to apply it in the modern day challenges. So we will do that in the next session. I hope we'll have discussion. And yes, Professor Ashwin, Bali never ceases to amaze people. It's a living example of how water management is deeply embedded in culture, to the extent that it's not easy to replicate. It's not just a technical solution. It has a deep cultural insight. So it certainly is a UNESCO heritage practice. So we are very honored that you've updated and presented that. So again, we can bring these two for further discussion. I want to leave it back to Nadia because there are many questions from the audience. Maybe Nadia, can you see that question? And if time permits, we can ask them to address them briefly before we go to the section 2.
Yeah. Do you need a limited time? You might need to wrap up after one or two maximum questions from the audience. And we have received this question from Shireen. That is a PhD researcher at Bandung Institute of Technology. It's directed to Dr. Sekumar. So the question is, considering today's climate variability and growing water stress, what practical lessons from ancient Indian water system can be integrated into modern urban planning to enhance resilience?
That's an excellent question, something which does not have easy answers. But what I can say is that it's a holistic nature of the planning. It's not just the water system alone. It's like if you that's why between showing all those pictures of the monuments themselves, I call them water monuments, and I was also showing you a couple of this satellite images, because it's not just that one. It's also making sure that the health of this water system that you're talking about is not obstructed by other things. So you cannot have planning which goes at crossroads to the to the health of the monument that provides you the water. That is where I think we are going wrong in many ways, because many of these ancient water systems itself stopped functioning because the inlets into the thing to sustain the water level are being blocked by modern unplanned construction which is coming around. So I think what we understand from them is that the plan for the city has to incorporate this into it, rather than just looking at a techno fix alone for this particular thing of accessing groundwater. I'll pause at that because of the paucity of time.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Kumar. Actually, we also have another question related to India water system. So it's from Gao. So given the technological and architectural advancement we have today, why do you think we have failed to preserve upon these advanced traditional systems over time?
That's also an excellent question, and that is again something which does not have easy answers. But listening to Dr. Ashwin's presentation and what Professor Sitaram also told us about, I think that these are not just monuments. These are not just technologies alone. It's also a cultural system. It's the entire thing which worked at that particular point of time. So what the biggest thing that has happened is that we have lost the sense of the sacred for these structures. We follow them without any. And not that religion has changed or anything like that, but the attitude of people toward the structure, the sacredness in which they held them, seem to have changed over time. So, which I think that is the challenge in replicating this would be also to create the emotional connect within the population for these structures too. It's not just that you see a water tank in the city, nobody is very much excited about it. And I know but I think the cultural connotations which are lost today, despite of not not the religion hasn't changed much in India if you look at it, for example, but this place that this had in these structures had in people's mind, that has definitely changed. Even in the very villages that we go to, you find that they're very without any guilt they have fouled the water there in the system. So I think that is the problem which is. Thank you.
Thank you
Nadia,
so
I
much,
think,
Oh, yeah.
I think they are missing one question from Sunway. I just looking. Sunwo Choi.
Um,
Can you check it?
um,
Could you?
yes, we have several unanswered questions that Dr. Srikumar and Dr. Aswin, but because of the time limitation, um,
Okay.
yeah, maybe I want to ask Dr. Srikumar and Dr. Aswin, are you willing to share your contacts like email for participants who are interested to reach out directly for the questions?
Yes, welcome.
Yes,
I'm good.
definitely.
Okay.
Perfectly fine. Yes.
Okay, we will do that. And yeah, for participants who ask questions that's not answered in this session, we will also have another session, a panel discussion after this. So we will also have wonderful panelists there. So feel free to ask your questions there. And yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Aswin and Dr. Srikumar, for the insightful presentations. I think the presentations and the Q&A highlighted how traditional water systems remain culturally significant and technically relevant. But it also faces serious threats from modern development, tourism pressures, and weakened community engagement in modern day. Um, yeah, we truly appreciate your contributions and hope that you'll stay with us until the rest of the webinar. We look forward for your participation in our next session as well.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
So we will now take a 10-minute break before continuing the second part of our webinar, a panel discussion with featuring our four wonderful panelists. We encourage you to stay in Zoom room during the break. Please take this time to relax, stretch, grab drink or snack, and we will resume promptly at 15:25 Tokyo time. It's going to be a 10-minute break. And we'll be right back in the Zoom with our second part of the webinar.
We are currently on a 10-minute break. The next session will commence at 15:25 JST. Please take this time to refresh and prepare for the upcoming discussions. Explore ADBI's recent publication, Sociocultural Dimensions in Water Resources Management. This work delves into policies, practices, and challenges. Access it by scanning the QR code provided. Our publication emphasizes integrating socio-cultural aspects into water management. It highlights local decision-making, blending indigenous knowledge with technology, and preserving traditional knowledge for sustainable practices. Please access it by scanning the QR code provided. We are on a 10-minute break. The next session will begin shortly. Please use this time to relax and get ready for the next part of our program. In the next session, we are focusing on harnessing ancient water knowledge to tackle modern challenges. We will explore how traditional practices can inform contemporary water management solutions. Our moderator for this session is Dr. Sitharam, a senior consulting specialist at ADBI and visiting professor at the University of Tokyo. He brings extensive expertise in infrastructure and policy development. Dr. Kenichi Matsui, associate professor at the University of Tsukuba, Japan, is one of our panelists. His research spans water law, governance, and traditional knowledge, contributing significantly to environmental policy discussions. Professor Sri Mariati from Bandung Institute of Technology, Indonesia, focuses on urban infrastructure and community-based water systems. Her work emphasizes the role of local institutions in sustainable water management. The next panelist is Professor Yongping Wei, Associate Professor at the University of Queensland, specializes in social hydrology. Her research enhances the understanding of human-nature interactions in water governance. Yugal Kishore Joshi, Program Director at Niti Aayog, brings a wealth of experience in water resources and public administration. His work includes significant contributions to water policy and governance. For the closing remark, we will have Yoon Jin Kim, Director of Strategy and Development at the World Water Council. She will deliver the closing remarks at the end of the webinar. Her leadership in global water initiatives underscores the importance of international cooperation in water security. The next session will begin shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. We are now moving on to the second session of today's webinar, our panel discussion titled, How Can Ancient Water Knowledge Be Harnessed to Address Modern-Day Challenges? In this session, we will have an open Q&A sessions after the main panel discussion session. So please submit your question in the Q&A box. This session will be moderated by Dr. Sitaram, Senior Consulting Specialist for ADBI. Dr. Sitaram brings extensive expertise in infrastructure policy, project implementation, and regional cooperation across Asia. He has also led research initiatives on water, energy, and climate resilience. In this session, we will also be joined by our four honorable panelists. Dr. Kenichi Matsui is an associate professor at the University of Tsukuba, Japan, specializing in water law, governance, and indigenous knowledge system, primarily in United States, Canada, and Sri Lanka. Second one, we have Professor Sri Mariati from Bandung Institute of Technology, whose research focuses on urban infrastructure, spatial planning, and community-based water system, primarily in Indonesia, informal and peri-urban areas. We will also be joined by Dr. Yongping Wei, who is a social hydrologist at the University of Queensland, Australia, who is recognized for her research on human-nature interactions on water governance. And the last one, we regret that Sri Yugal Joshi is unable to join this session due to last-minute urgent work issue. He sends his sincere regards. However, we are delighted that we have Professor Shiwatari Mikio, who has generously made himself available to join us as panelists this session. Professor Shiwatari is a professor at the School of Business Management at Meiji University, Japan, and board director of Japan Water Forum. We truly appreciate his support and are confident that with our wonderful panelists, we'll still have a fruitful and engaging discussion this afternoon. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Dr. Sitaram, to lead this panel discussion.
Thank you, Nadia, for the kind introduction and excellent arrangement. And my gratitude also to Professor Ishiwatari, my colleague. The book that Nadia showed was edited by him. And so it puts us in a very nice footing. We had very good two presentations already in session one who introduced the traditional systems from the region with examples from India and Indonesia. Today's discussion, I'm delighted that we have colleagues representing other countries in the region. To start us off, maybe we should ask, because it's about current challenges, Professor Ishiwatari, Professor Yongping Wei, Professor Mariati, and Professor Matsui Kenichi, we we are all concerned about water security. And still Asia and many Asian countries have huge challenges for water management. But there's also rich history and culture. So the first question, this I would like each of you to briefly remark in a couple of minutes. What do you think are the opportunities to use the ancient challenge for the current challenges? We have solved them apparently, but we've kind of forgotten the knowledge. That's what the two presentations kind of brought. Or the challenges are so complex that the current examples or the historic examples are not necessarily useful. So I would like you to take one more look at it. Then I'll go one by one with some specific deep dive questions. So no specific order, but maybe lady first. So Professor Yongping Wei and Professor Mariatti, then Professor Matsui and Professor Ishwatari. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Little correction. I have been the professor over 5 years, but just small correction. Yes. I have several PhD students work on this area, so I like to share their key findings, then probably attract more research in this area. First key finding student found is certainly our older what technology still be used in current world as the two fantastic speeches has said. But the key question here is how we can maximize the old water technology to achieve multiple purpose in current world. For example, irrigation, soil water conservation. Old days we want to achieve food security. Now we have to look at environment, social fairness. So how we can reach that question, the first key finding. Second key finding, our students found we couldn't look at individual technology. We have to look at the technology system. We found the old 7,000 years ago Yellow River system and Yangtze River system, similar technology, but a different technology system. End of the day, their function is very different. So the second question for me to ask our audience, how we can identify different technology pattern to support different river basins, then we can share our knowledge in this area. The third question is third key finding our student found is so our in a ways our innovation or reinventing our old water technology system is much slower than modern technology like the biotechnology, the AI. So my question for our young generation is how can we more rapidly reinventing our old water technology to well align with other technologies, support more sustainable water technology in current world, not the world 5,000 years ago. That's the third. Fourth key findings we found is different countries have probably because of different drivers have different water technology system. So the question for me is how we can integrate like a Philippines, Indonesia have a fantastic different water technology, how we integrate all this technology system to support a global sustainable water technology system to meet our current technology. So in summary, so I don't know who our audience today are really encourage our young careers, either research practitioner, to ask themselves this kind of question, how we can reinvent our old technology to face our meet our challenges, what face us today. That's all from me. Thank you.
Very nice. That's actually very nice and set the nice stage. So I'm going to rephrase your message, how we can draw the technologies and then apply it for the today's challenges, what we can do to kind of reinvent ourselves. And that brings us actually, Professor Marietti's work mainly you've done a lot of work on community water provision, community participation. In fact, the ancient systems relied heavily on the local bottom-up or community participation. So if you could share your insights, what are those challenges? What we learn is that the replication may be stuck with some lack of understanding or poor understanding of the importance of community participation. Over to you, Professor Mariati.
Yes, thank you, Professor. And first, maybe I would also say that fortunately, I have visit in person the 2 case study in India, Stepwell in Ahmedabad and also Subak in Bali.
Wow.
So maybe I will start with the component of water supply system because usually if you talk about the community-based system, it consists of water supply, water demand, and water management. And based on the previous very interesting presentation from the 2 prominent speakers, we can also put the element into water supply, for example, in like Stepwell, it talk about the water reservoir, and also in Subak, not only how to manage the water, but also how to distribute the water among the participant or water user association. And it is also related to water management. So the challenges, I think it's the related to regulation. Now we know that the government has set up many formal regulation and also institution, while these practices, it's more like informal and need participation and so on. So the challenges is how to combine these the existing things in what happened today in our water management that full with the things like very formal system, very formal regulation, with the one that informal things. Then this is I think and how to involve the community to participate in this system. This is still also the problem. And also I saw that there is related to land use, land use, not really to community-based water, but I saw that it's have very the ancient water supply system have very good prediction on water supply need or water demand need and water supply and how they provide the infrastructure things. And it's look a very big building, or can we imagine that in the past maybe the number of population is very small, and then now how we can make this traditional knowledge in terms of the physical building more or smaller physical building, because it's especially in urban area we have very limited land for that. Maybe that's all from my point of view.
I'm going to come back to you later to dig deep on some of the comments you made. Very interesting comment. Let me now move to Professor Matsui, because you had studied irrigation systems in Japan and other countries. So I want to, of course, other than water for drinking, water for food has also been a historic way, and traditional societies have managed water for agriculture. So what do you think are the messages that we can draw or we can learn? Because many developing countries in Asia still struggle for getting water for agriculture purposes. What are your insights, Professor Matsui?
Initially, I was thinking about a question as to what could be the most pressing issues in terms of water governance in Asia. And so I was thinking about, instead of irrigation or enough water supply for agriculture, we also have issues about too much water, which is like flooding. And because of flooding, there has been an issue of displacement. And so we need to put those things together to think about how water can be better governed by incorporating traditional knowledge not only using it, but also maybe incorporating so that we can evolve as society. So I'm not sticking always with traditional systems, but we need to learn from it. But at the same time, we need to learn from science as well. So that's one of the things I was thinking about.
Very good. Let me come back to you again.
Sure.
I'm going to ask a question, Professor Ishiwatari. I know you joined at very short notice, but you have done a lot of work on disaster preparedness and also disaster response. And one of the first things that affects after disaster, of course, life and buildings are affected, is drinking water and sanitation immediately after disaster. So from your research and experience, what do you think are the disaster has not gone away. We still have disasters. So what can we learn from traditional practices or experience to learn to live or to adapt, or what can we do differently? Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing this very interesting and important session. Yeah, first of all, traditional knowledge, our historical knowledge is very crucial in adapting to climate change. We thought Western technology, Japan introduced water technology from Netherlands, and we developed our infrastructure facilities. We thought we could resolve flooding issue. However, under this changing climate, it's not enough. Such a Western technology is never enough. And what Japan is doing to reuse traditional, our historical knowledge again. What's a historical knowledge? Quite important point is how to use paddy field, or how to use land, not for urban areas, agricultural lands. Yeah, definitely this is traditional knowledge of Asian countries share. So how to use such a technology or traditional customs or cultural issues to this climate change adaptation? Yeah, this is our challenge. We have such knowledge and how to integrate such a traditional one into the current situation under this changing society and changing climate. This is my first.
Very nice. So I'm going to go back to Professor Matsui. He brought the awareness of science and technology. We are living in a world of technology. Information technology has exponentially grown particularly in the last 20 years, that we now have a lot more information than what we had 20 years ago. And we also have computing power, and we also are able to communicate with people. Today, we are able to share more information. So we are more aware. Professor Sri Kumar showed satellite imagery to show the actual situation. So we are able to now gather information. So I'm going to deep dive into that, Professor Matsui, if you're okay. So in terms of governance, you talked about managing water. So what can we do better to learn to live with water or use water much more efficiently, and to also look at flooding and land use? What are we doing differently? What can we do differently? What are your suggestions and thoughts?
It could be somewhat related to what our Indonesian colleagues were talking about, community participation, but not only participation, but also empowerment and self-governance. So as another Japanese colleague talked about Japanese traditional ways of irrigation and water management, we have ancient water management systems in many different places. And there's an organization called International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage that designates the World Heritage Irrigation Structure. There are 177 and 54 are located in Japan. And all those are made more than 300-400 years ago. Some goes back to 1190 AD, and some are still being practiced. So that may go back to the first question I asked: why can't we continue this ancient practice? It depends on how local people are committed and how local leadership's being formulated. If we've become too individualistic in terms of receiving support for irrigation or disaster management, we lose insight about local cooperation. And that may be something that indigenous communities practices may give us some insights about how locally, communally, people managed and cope with disaster situations or shortage of water or too much water sometimes. And then to what extent our modern science and technology can supplement or enhance their livelihood. And so that's something we need to think about instead of just only encouraging participation. To what extent we can promote self-governance, mutual help, and better organizing skills and leadership.
Very nice.
If that answers your question.
Well, you've actually opened up further points to discuss. I'm going to jump to Professor Mariatti, then I'm going to come to Professor Wei. So he talked about technology, and then we talked about the role of community, and then also talked about governing water better. So I want to ask you, Professor Mariatti, you brought this point that we had this, but we are not able to follow. So I would like to ask you how the same kind of context, with so much information available now, are we getting more aware that we need to manage better? You know, land is local, food is grown locally, but of course it can go from one place to another. But the water cycle is for the entire planet, right? The rain pattern is not decided by local things only. The earth rotates once a day, and then you don't know what will happen, right? That's why even weather forecast, we are still not able to be precise until about 4 hours before it's going to rain or not. So what is your take on community participation on that?
Yes, it's a very interesting, and also I would like to link with the Professor Matsui statement in the previously conversation. It's about communally managed instead of participation. I very agree about that. So if we talk about communally managed, so the community feel this is their maybe not obligation, but they belong. The system belong to them. Not only participate the things that provide by the government, and they participate in the program. So I would like to stress this. Maybe the differences between communally managed and participation. And in the case of Indonesia, we found that things that there are some infrastructure that this is belong to community, and they have their own initiative to develop the system, and the system that developed by government and a community just participate as a user, just collect the money and also make a maintenance and so on. Based on our study about this kind of the differences between the two systems, the first one is better because they based on their need, and usually they have also communication. If I talk about the water, this is not only the water in the community, but we talk also about the water resources that may be not in the location of the inhabitant. So if we talk about that, then the community usually they think about also the water resources that may be located outside the community itself. So it's but this is not easy actually. I think the government still have to facilitate. So we have maybe some layer of water governance, starting from the macro level that should be also regulate by the government, and the micro level that it's very good if managed by the commonly managed water, but it's have to be linked together. So we cannot only say that this one is better compared to that one, but it should together in terms of water management.
Thank you. I'm going to now ask both Professor Yongpin Wei and then also Professor Ishiwatari. This builds on the point that Professor Matsui and Professor Mariatti alluded to. A big challenge that modern society is facing is because of the economic model that we pursue, we need to urbanize to become successful as an economy. So urbanization by design removes people or moves people, I'm just being provocative, from villages. They want to come to city. That means people who used to live in villages and maybe grow their own food, they are not doing that anymore, right? People are moving. And this is true in all large countries. So in that context, it changes the appreciation or the demand for water management. You know, the people living in cities don't get the food by themselves, right? They're just going to the supermarket to buy the food. So what is that adding to this management of water? And both of you, please comment on that. And what's the lesson from the ancient time to the modern times?
So thank you. It's a great question. So I think what technology can help build a very resilient community to conserve our old knowledge. So in terms of urbanization, so we can use old technology, use new technology to conserve the old technology. First example is use mapping, GIS mapping, remote sensing mapping. We can see how much our farming system there. You can look at sitting in your urban home, see what happens there. The first one. Second one, I'm thinking is the GIS technology. They can lots help us where they are, what's the problem there, what's a hotspot problem there. The third is very important is media, social media platform. So we can build a good community, use this kind of stuff to talk to our remote people, less remote people. I think in the future, everybody in the city and only technicians occasionally go to our water basin or the farming site. So we need to use the medium or social medium, build the platform to see how we can store our old technology, old culture, and build and distribute that in the new urban water community or whatever community. So use the new technology to support our old technology, which is still crucial for our food system, water system. That's my comments.
Very good. Professor Ishwatari, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I believe we should respect such a traditional water custom or water use. I think respect is a very good word in this context. In case of Japan, we experienced such urbanization and water demand increase. How to resolve it? As everyone explained, Asian countries have a long history of water use for hundreds of years or thousand years. We should respect such a established water custom. In case of Japan, urban water users or industrial water users, they were newcomers. Already, irrigation water was developed by farmers, and I may say all water, river water, was developed by farmers. So during modernization or during development, our government or our country respect such a farmer's tradition. We never destroy, I hope, we never destroyed irrigation farmers such a custom or disciplines. And before providing water to urban users, new dam construction provided water for irrigation. Actually, it's free of charge. And urban water and industrial water, their priority is lower than farmers even nowadays. So in such case, we should develop our new water practice or new water system based on such a long history of tradition, or a long history of established mechanisms, and we should respect such a tradition. This is my comment.
Excellent. That actually opens me to go back to Professor Matsui. There's a question in the Q&A box. It's we want your views on how the transboundary water governance and then also address how do we address water conflicts. Of course, there are also water conflict international transboundary, but first within country and then across country, if you would like to comment. I think that brings us to the new topic because there are a lot of water-related conflicts around the world as well.
Yeah, we tend to think about transboundary water conflicts in terms of international law, but today's topic, which is to connect our practices to ancient practices. In that context, what I can say, for example, in Japan, there are some communities in, let me check the village, Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan, which is very close to Mount Fuji. There are 30 villages that came together to create the water law, local water law, and that determine distribution fee, maintenance, and canal repair. And it has been sustained since 1700.
Wow.
It's still being practiced, not simply because the government says so, but because local people want to maintain it, and there are some good leadership attempts to keep it. So that's something that we can think about, if not everywhere, but as a model, that there are many practices that we can learn from, not only in rural areas, but in urban areas. And so that water users, upper stream, lower stream, can talk about mutual interest in terms of aiming toward win-win situation instead of zero-sum game negotiations. And there are some conflict resolution studies being done, and that we can learn from that kind of discussion in terms of how we identify stakeholders and make representations and discuss about some of the issues. And through social learning, we can discover new values from cooperation and so on and so forth, and how the leadership can take a role in it, and how we can renew that kind of relationship in time.
Okay. I'm going to, with the permission of the other panelists, I'm also going to invite Professor Shikumar and Professor Ashwin to join our panel. Yeah, Professor Yongpinwei, you had a hand up. Please go ahead, and then I will make the new points. Go
I'll
ahead.
quickly say my student is doing more Nile Basin, it's a share from different states and different territory. So we've put the sustainable water yield there based on 100 hydrologists, put this fantastic plan. So the farmers said no, First Nations said no. So now we back to the 2012. So we say we restart this basin plan. We need inclusive governance to lots of involvement to the stakeholders. The other good example is the student do the Columbia River, which shares the boundary with Canada and America. They have very clear, transparent, what's your benefit of flood risk, what's your benefit for hydropower, how we can share the benefit. Because they have the same culture, so far it should be conflict, but never conflict. They renewed their agreement for another 50 years. So it's lots of good solutions, economic-driven solution or community-driven solution.
Beautiful. You almost like read my mind. I was about to bring this point. See, the modern states, they are political boundaries, but nature has its own boundary. We call it river basin, right? The political boundaries are not necessarily aligned with the river basin. Professor Ishwatari and I, we have worked with a network of Asian river basin organizations. So there are some countries which are very deep into observing them, but some other countries are still in the early stages of understanding this important and managing the water as a basin rather than just within the political boundaries. So I want to bring in Professor Sri Kumar and Professor Ashwin. This goes into a little bit of a philosophical discussion because we are all from Asia. In Asia, water is respected, right? Professor Ashwin presented how there's a cultural Balinese Hindu tradition to respect water. And it's common in other Asian countries. Professor Ishwatari also mentioned about the priority for agriculture and then the new users, the industry and the urban users. So that brings us to a new discussion. While we have tried engineering solutions, we now have the wisdom of the ancient knowledge, but to connect that, we need a very strong, not just discussing the problem, what would be the technological or the scientific or the new way to kind of leapfrog. I want to bring the analogy of the mobile phone or internet technology. We are able to talk today across the globe because the internet technology just works, and it's working so well that we don't think about it as a problem anymore, right? It's like that we have solved some of the basic challenges with very reliable and highly trustworthy technology. But when it comes to water management, what is it that we can apply to make things work better? So now it's a kind of a free for everybody. So please take your views, and I hope the younger audience here will also take insights from us and ask us questions. So go ahead in no order. Whoever wishes to jump in, maybe Professor Sri Kumar, Professor Ashwin first, then our other four panelists.
Okay, what I have may not be very, it may be very naive, the kind of thing that I'm going to say, but you had mentioned that we get our food from the supermarket. So somewhere I think the connect that we have with the source for where we get things, whether it's water, whether it's food, I think that's very important. That's something that we lose in this internet age where everything is available in packets, or you open the tap and the water comes. If water doesn't come, you just blame the authorities. So I think that I'm not saying that we should go back to the time when we take a pot and descend into step wells to get our water, but somewhere the imagery just to be we have so many means of communicating things to audiences today, diverse audiences. So somewhere that bringing water back into the consciousness of people is, I think, as important as any technological solution that you might think of. I mean, I don't know how relevant it might sound.
Thank you. Professor Ashwin.
Yeah, I think you're correct. In many parts of Asia, including like Bali, India, I think Bhutan, also Japan, water is not just only resources; it's respected entirety, often linked to rituals, community life, and also cosmology. I think hybridization with modern technology in Asia heritage is good point. I mean, I think traditional knowledge, yeah, offer special wisdom, where to be, how ethic principle, how to share, and social ritual, why it matters. And then modern technology adds real-time data, like a sensor IoT, smart allocation using AI model, and also better monitoring like GIS and drone. I think it's the hybrid system don't replace tradition, but they enhance and protect it, by fusing local wisdom with innovation. Asia can create resilient, I think, culturing rooted water system that adapt to climate change while also respecting heritage, respect to the local wisdom, something like that.
Okay, I'm going to take the chance to actually ask some specific questions to Professor Matsui. There are some nice questions that has come in the chat in the Q&A box. One is Professor Matsui and Ishwatari. It's about the limited availability of fresh water and the increasing demand across sectors. So he's asking the question how this approach may not be feasible in developing countries, and how can developing countries adopt or adapt innovative water-saving practices in their own context. So he's giving the example of Japan, Hong Kong, which is using seawater for toilet flushing, reuse of water, basically. Any views?
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. It depends, first of all, how you use it. This seawater use is for urban use or domestic purpose. Another water shortage can be about irrigation issues. So for irrigation, how can you save water? How can you make more water efficient irrigation, which can be maybe drip technology or some other. There also possibility of using AI to spot some areas that need specific water, the plants that needs more water instead of just spraying or giving water to the entire area. And so there are some ways to improve irrigation efficiency more by using AI and some other technologies. And also mapping in terms of too much water. There has been the mapping GIS use in terms of risk levels. But again, we need to be careful how we put the data in it because depending on what kind of data we have, the risk maps can be presenting different results. The same way, to what extent we can incorporate traditional knowledge in AI to provide us a better management system for irrigation and some other purposes.
Excellent. There was a question to you again, Professor Matsui, maybe, but you can come back to it later. It's about good practice examples which may be relevant for farmer associations and also for rural areas which are not yet developed. This is a question from the Central Asian Research Institute, which is responsible for Central Asian countries. If you have any thoughts on the farmer association good practice examples that they can refer to.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I've been to only Kyrgyzstan in terms of Central Asia. Somewhat similar to it is Mongolia, but after 1990, there has been privatization, and former Soviet countries used to be managed by community levels. But then when the privatization happened, many farms were isolated, and that became one of the issues in terms of efficient water management and so on and so forth. So to some extent, I think Central Asian countries may learn something that were practiced in the past in terms of community cooperation and then how they recognized community boundaries and so on and so forth. Another maybe example you might learn from Japan is that one mentioned about 30 villages in Yamanashi Prefecture. There are also community-based self-governance practices in many places in Japan. And those villages created their own laws and accounting systems and so on and so forth. And so instead of saying that there's a limited fund to do this and that, they try to find a way to use their own self-funded practices. And we all have limited money, but we have unlimited brain power. So that we use that brain power, we create regional genius, regional scientists to think about how diversely we can practice that fits into the local context. So I don't know if that helps.
Very nice. Let me now switch to Professor Ishiwatari. You had presented at another occasion the role of the private sector, particularly for when disasters, where they could use modern technology like drones and others to really not only provide information, but also provide support. So this question is in the question box, the role of various stakeholders. I mean, so far we've been discussing what should be done, but we may now go a little bit about who should do. We talked about community, but how they should organize themselves. What's the role of private sector, the corporate, the government, and the society? How they can work together rather than each one saying just the problem. But we can actually, the problem can be a business opportunity, right? Bottled water is now available everywhere because it's become a commodity. So from that angle, what do you think is the role of the private sector, especially during situations where there's a water security issue? What are your views?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite challenging. Yeah, it's a very important point. Yeah, government role is quite important. How government can encourage or how can government leverage private sector investment? This is a point. In such sense, government subsidy system or government regulation system, this should be organized. Well, for example, for residential level, in Japan, each local government, some local governments have a subsidy system for rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting is good for flood protection in urban area and good for managing water demand. So, and they provide much, in some case, most of costs. So if someone wants to install water harvesting facility in their house, well, very easily they can do. And secondly, private sector investment. Regulation is one area. In case of Japan, local governments, it is very Asian way, request private sector to construct pond when they develop housing lot. It's a request. However, in Asian culture, if government request, usually private developers, they follow such a request. And they construct flood ponds, flood regulation ponds by their own cost. As such, how to provide incentive, how to mobilize such a private financing, such a government system is quite important. There are many other ways, tax relaxation or just a very simple subsidy or very simple regulation. There are many ways, but how to combine, these are various tools. This is a point, I believe.
Thank you. We've come to the end of the discussion time allocated. So I'm going to give the last 30 seconds to Professor Yongpin Wei and hand it back to Nadia. Thank you all for your contribution. Professor Yongpin Wei, any last parting words from you? And then I'll give it to Nadia. Okay, back to Nadia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sitaram, for moderating this engaging discussions, and thank you to all panelists for your thoughtful insights and all participants for your valuable contributions. We are now approaching the conclusion of our webinar, but before we close our webinar, we would like to hear a few final reflections from Ms. Yunjin Kim, Director of Strategy and Development at World Water Council and Director of the Executive Board at International Water Resources Association. She has worked extensively on climate resilient development, global water governance, and green water partnerships. Ms. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It was great opportunity for me to participate at this session. So every speakers and esteemed colleagues and friends who are participating at this webinar, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation firstly to ADBI for covering this very timely and very thought-provoking occasion, and for providing the platform where ancient wisdom meets contemporary policy and also practice on this water security issue. So it is another great privilege to offer this closing reflection on today's rich and illuminating discussion with very many important messages. I cannot cover all, but through the lens of ancient Asia, as we've discussed, we have rediscovered not only how civilization built canals, reservoirs, or any other infras and the sacred groves, but how they cultivated harmony between nature and people, also between water and society, as well as science and policy with the traditional wisdoms of our ancestors, especially in Asia. From the monumental reservoirs and sluice gates, the Dolavira, the Harbin city that thrived in the arid run to Kutch over 4,000 years ago, as we've learned, to the vast stepped wells of Rani Kivav, as the sacred lakes and the engineered tanks of Vijayanagara, as our one of the speakers were very much well presented. We've seen how this ancient India sculpt and land to store, protect, and sanctify water. And these were not just a structure, they were expressions of civilizational ethic and integrating engineering at the same time aesthetics and public welfares together. So likewise, we were immersed in the profound philosophy of Trita Karna from Bali, a worldview that binds nature, humanity, and spirituality together. The Subak system, which I was also very much impressed when I visited there, is not merely the irrigation technique, as we all know now. It is a living institution, if I may say, sustained through ritual, local law, and collective governance together. So it embodies the sacred relationships between the upstreams and downstreams, and also the different communities, different multi-stakeholders, the visual and invisible, the practical and the spiritual. So it really gives us a lesson that water is not only to be shared, it is to be honored, as our esteemed moderator highlighted. So the stories we heard today from the Harapan city to Doravira to Subak systems to Bali are not just tales or of the past. They're blueprints for our future as well. In coming back to Doravira, seasonal rainfalls are captured and they're stored through intricate stone reservoirs designated with a profound understanding of topography and flow. And it was not really expected in that age. In Bali, also, water is more than resource. It is ritual, spiritual, convenient, shared by farmers through networks and the collaborations. They made their own governance. So these practices offer us more than nostalgia. So as they offer tested principles of resilience embedded at the landscape, cultural, and governance together. So, and these are not isolated examples. As we've also gone through different other examples across the Asia today, that we see renewed efforts to reconnect with such wisdom. For example, in Thailand, local communities are reviving Mueang Phai irrigation system to manage floods and droughts together in the decentralized participatory manner. In Sri Lanka, West Asia, ancient tank cascade systems are being integrated into climate adaptation plans to enhance groundwater recharge and food security together. So even in highly urbanized context like Singapore, we know that ABC Water's program drew upon the efforts of the multifunctional water landscape with the citizens together, reimagining canals as living streams and civic spaces. Not only that, it's very interesting and important that Mr. Matsui and Mr. Ishiwatari mentioned in their inputs at the panel discussion on mutual contribution for both the scientific and technological, and also at the same time traditional solutions should be working together and interactive for the water security, especially the water disaster resolutions. So what do we all these examples tell us? They tell us that the water management is not only about the pipes and pumps, but at the same time about people and place, but it should be also mutually interlinked. The sustainable water futures are built not just under innovation, but on identity and honor. And that is the age of crisis, and the deepest wellspring may be found in the past. So just giving very additional significance that I've heard from today's meeting today. The last but not least, the ancient water systems also, as well, we discussed often transcended political boundaries, relying on shared customs, spiritual values, and local arrangements of different decisions. Agreements of the government, also common issues that we need to deal with on water security. It is not only about the conflict resolution, but I really want to insist that it should go along with the cooperation enhancement. So these examples remind us cooperation over water is now not a new challenge, but also it's a new challenge, but a historical norm rooted in the reciprocity, trust, and collective stewardship principles we must now revive on regional and global scale. So let us remind the definition of water security again by having our discussion today that requires truly holistic approach, one that embraces both scientific innovation, time-honored traditional knowledge, complementary forces together. So water security is not only about the guaranteeing sufficient quantity and quality of water, but human beings and ecosystem health and education, economic productivity should be also considered together. Lastly, I just want to share with you what I've learned from Balinese when I coordinate the 10th World Water Forum. There is a Balinese proverb, which I'm remembering as the water flows to those who know how to respect it. So let us be those people, and as the World Water Council is one of the organizations who continues to champion this holistic vision, bridging an ancestral insight with political will, especially, and also linking up with the science, with the spirituality together. And let today not be conclusion, but a new confluence, and this confluence of knowledge system, cultural, and also the generation gaps could be working in our discussion. And hopefully, as we've discussed, not only in Asia, but we could make these messages out, more replicability and scalability be ensured in our value to be disseminated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kim, for your thoughtful closing remarks and for helping us reflect on the key messages from today's discussion, and also for sharing that thought-provoking Balinese proverb. And now we're at the end of the webinar, and to help us improve future events, we kindly ask that you take 2 minutes to complete a brief feedback survey as shown in the screen. You can access it via the link on the screen or by scanning the QR code.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of ADBI, we extend our sincere gratitude to all speakers, panelists, and participants for making today's discussion rich and engaging. May this diverse and distinguished group of people be the foundation of future collaborations, and we encourage you to connect with each other, and we here and happy to facilitate those introductions. We would also like to thank all ADBI team that helped organizing this event. We hope the insights shared in today's webinar will spark further dialogue and encourage further action towards advancing sustainable water security in Asia. Let this be the beginning of continued collaboration and knowledge exchange across our shared communities. And have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events.
Thank you. Congratulations, Nadia. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.